Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Film Society of Lincoln Center. My name is Scott Fondas. I'm the Associate Program Director, and it's really an honor to be able to present this very special evening with someone who I think definitely qualifies to be called a legend, not just of the big screen, but of so many facets of popular culture. She's certainly no stranger to the audience here at the Film Society, where she was the recipient of our Chaplin Gala tribute several years ago, and of course is a two-time Academy Award winner. I'm going to introduce now somebody who helped to make this evening possible. She is a freelance critic and programmer, and also the editor of the online feminist film journal Jones Digest, which is our co-presenter this evening. Please welcome Miriam Bale.
Hello, I am the editor of Jones Digest, and we are a feminist film journal. We write about feminism, classic international and Hollywood film, and also contemporary film. So we are so lucky, we feel so lucky to present someone who has succeeded fantastic heights in every single one of those areas. And this night couldn't happen without the Film Society, IFC, particularly Matt Mazer and Donna Daniels, so I want to thank them. And we also, this whole week is celebrating Jane Fonda and her wonderful new film, including Jones Digest is sponsoring a screening of the wonderful feminist revenge fantasy 9 to 5 tomorrow night at 92Y Tribeca. A very good reminder that to be a feminist, you need constant humor and imagination to get through the patriarchy. So I welcome you to come to that. But we also, I just want to, Jane Fonda, of all the events, you here are the luckiest because you have an evening exposed to one of the most engaging minds, endlessly curious and endlessly evolving. And I dare you to leave tonight and not be inspired. So right now I have the privilege of introducing your host for the night, a raconteur and aficionado of both great performances and of contemporary goddesses. I welcome you now, the New Yorker writer Hilton Als.
I was getting such a big head backstage because I thought she was talking about me at first. My evolving, monumental brain and heart. But it's all for Jane, as it should be, and I have this little introduction which will no doubt embarrass Jane greatly, but I think it needs to be said in particular because she is, well, you'll see. I am very honored to introduce Jane Fonda this evening, but to call this moment an introduction feels more than redundant. Jane has introduced and continues to introduce herself to the world through a variety of means. As an activist, as a writer, as a champion of new talent, as an actress. But it's the artist, the superlative actress, I'd like you to celebrate with me this evening. Jane is a performer of such fortitude and imagination that her nearly 50 or so years in front of the camera and on the stage amount to a kind of monument that shows, as no other performer has, the evolution of the American modern woman. Even when Jane has played European-based characters such as Nora in director Joseph Losey's 1973 film version of A Doll's House, she remains the best Nora I have ever seen, by the way. And in Godard's Tout va bien, it's her independence and uncertainty and conflict and Americanness that shines through. No other country could have produced her, and no other country loves her more, because Jane's life and work shows the complications inherent in love and in being an American and being a woman while possessing the talent to express all those things at once. Ladies and gentlemen, Jane Fonda.
feel like I've died and gone to heaven. Wow. Thank you very much, both of you, for that beautiful introduction. I may take a few pictures myself. I blog.
This is such a treat. Jane has been, as many of you are blog and TV and newspaper watchers and readers know, Jane has been in Cannes, and I say that when I was watching her on various things like fashion, what's that report? Fashion Police.
Fashionista.
Did you see Fashion Police where they voted you the best? Yes.
I heard about it, though.
Yes. I say that in Cannes where you dropped what I call the J-bomb, meaning you were photographed avidly at the festival, and a number of commentators remarked on your body and style and air of unvanquished health.
Fooled him again. One more year.
Being an actress involves being looked at, and getting work in part is based on that. Do you go to festivals like Cannes so that you can remind the film industry of what they should have?
No, I go because I'm being paid very well by L'Oreal. It pays the bills.
And when you have that experience there, do you meet filmmakers who are interested in working with you generally?
No.
No?
No. I wish, but I love working for L'Oreal. It's actually quite. Can you imagine a skincare company that has an ambassador who's 74 years old? It's a very cool, a very cool company to work for. And what I really enjoy the most is that I meet the other women who work for L'Oreal, who happen to be, Eva Longoria. Who knew?
Right.
She's this fierce, brave, articulate, fantastic, progressive woman. And Frida Pinto, who's the star of Slumdog Millionaire, and Amy Mullins, who has no legs, and just these amazing women. And that's what I love about going.
So that's very sort of individualistic casting, as they would say. And I wanted to start to talk to you about your career as an actress and how it's and it's progressing again rather rapidly. When you effectively retired after Stanley and Iris came out, was the decision based on the exhausting demands of being a film star for so long, or the exhausting demands of Ted Turner?
No, it had nothing to do with Ted. Ted saved me. No, I was really unhappy as a person. My marriage was falling apart, and I don't know how true this is of other actors, but I found it really hard to be creative when I felt so not good in my skin as a woman, and so I thought I'm just going to leave. And I was prepared to move to New Mexico and be a full-time activist. And then Ted Turner came along, so I didn't have to work and I didn't have to move anywhere. He took me under his wing and taught me to laugh, and that was great. But I never missed acting. I never thought I'd go back to it. And then after our marriage ended, I spent 5 years writing my memoirs. And towards the end of it, I thought, something, I'm really a different person. And I think I could find joy in acting again. Mm-hmm. And along came Monster-in-Law.
Right.
Which again, I never could have played if I hadn't spent 10 years with Ted.
Right.
Who taught me that over the top and outrageous can be pretty lovable.
Yes.
Not to be afraid.
Yes. I'm very curious about this issue. We had talked about it a little bit when we were working on the profile together about the discomfort that one can feel as a performer in one's skin. What does it take to perform, and what do you think had diminished for you by the time you stopped after Stanley and Iris? So that's a sort of two-pronged question.
It was just painful to get up in the morning and have to go in front of a camera and exist. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't do it. And I didn't have to do it because I had income from the workout. So,
yes.
I know a lot of actors have to continue no matter what. And maybe actors thrive on being unhappy, but I don't. I'm better when I'm feeling okay. And I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yes.
And I can look at the movies and I can see that there's nobody home.
Right. That you were at a certain point.
I wasn't there. I was somewhere else.
Mm. When in 2002, when you participated in Looking for Deborah Winger, that wonderful documentary about performing, you described something incredibly beautiful about the only thing you would have missed about acting was the circle of light that you said happened for you as a performer several times. Can you describe what that means a bit?
Well, as a young child, going and visiting the sets that my father was working on, and I was just thinking today also, I watched Marilyn Monroe filming Some Like It Hot on a soundstage. And, you know, in those days there were these huge Klieg lights. They're not used anymore because film is so sensitive that you can have these tiny little fluorescent things and you don't need these other kinds of lights. But in the old days, they were like palm trees. And there'd be this circle of light. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you go onto a sound set, you have to be very quiet. You know, when this red light turns, you have to be. And all of the energy is being sucked into the circle of light. And you're an outsider. And there's a secret that's happening in there. And I just remember being in awe of it and thinking, God, I'd love to know what that feels like. And then I did experience it, and you know, it doesn't always happen the way you want, but every now and then, what's so interesting about being in movies is that it's this combination of, you know, you have to hit your marks, you rehearse, and there's no lights. You know, it's dark and it's a whole different vibe, and you rehearse, and then you're supposed to repeat what you did more or less, hitting all the same marks, only now there's a lot of light and everything like that, and you have to become somebody and you have to exist in the moment while you hit your mark. So it's this very interesting intersection between technique and technology and emotions and becoming someone else. And every now and then, and frankly not that often in my career, it's all come together, and it's like being transported, and that's what I was talking about, that amazing feeling. My dad he hardly ever talked about acting, but he used to talk about it in terms of like a plane taxiing along, and then it would sort of take off, and then it would start to fly. And so I talked about it, but I didn't miss it. Mm-hmm. At that time, I never thought I'd be doing it again.
That's extraordinary. And when you were on the set for Monster-in-Law and subsequent work, did you have that feeling that you remembered of wanting to be part of it once you were there again?
I had a whole different experience. It's like I just had so much more fun, and I don't know why it was. Maybe it's just because I was 15 years older, and maybe because of Ted. I just didn't take it all so. I just had such a good time, and that is also true in the movie that you are all going to see tonight.
Yes.
And I've had several people comment to me that you know, it's a certain kind of movie. It's, you know, it's not Clute, but you know, it's you can tell that she's happy.
Yes.
You can
Her
tell
body
that
is
she
very
has a
free.
life force, and there's a freedom
Yes.
that I didn't always have in my performances. And so, you know, however, in this, you know, I've done several other things since this movie was done, and I'm going back to acting school. I haven't told you that.
No.
No, I've realized that my instrument, as Lee would call it, needs to be tuned up again. I need to work on being in the moment. So I'm going to go back. I had an epiphany. It was 3 nights ago, and I thought, I'm going to go back to school. And it felt so good.
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
Instead of phoning it in. Everybody assumes when you're old like me, you just phone it in. But no, I'm going to go back and be a student again.
Are you kidding? You've never
I'm
phoned
not
in a
kidding.
performance in your life.
Well,
And I know that
I'm
you're...
excited about it. I don't know who to study with, though. Maybe you have some ideas.
I
But
have
we
some
won't,
thou-
we
I
won't
have some
take their time.
thoughts. But I wanted to, since you mentioned Lee, let's say that there are a lot of very young people here who don't know who that is, and let's talk about what
Okay.
that means.
That means Lee Strasberg, who brought the method, the Stanislavski method, to the United States. He was also part of the group theater at one point, and I studied with him, and that's really why I became an actor, because I didn't like actors very much, and my father never seemed to find joy in acting, so I wasn't motivated to want to be an actor. But I was fired as a secretary, and I didn't know what to do, and I was a friend of Susan Strasberg, and she said, well, why don't you come to my father's classes? This isn't the actor's studio. This was his private classes, and I sat next to Marilyn Monroe in these classes. She was so scared, she never did one scene when she was there. And I sat for a couple of months before I did anything, and when I finally had the guts to get up and do something, and he said, you have talent. it was like the top of my head came off. And suddenly, and I didn't even know this monster was lurking inside me, this like need to do this. It was hidden. I didn't want to admit it. But the minute he gave me permission, it was like, and it's the most wonderful thing in the world when you know what you want to do. You wake up knowing what you want to do. You go to bed knowing what you want to do. You might not always do it well, but that clarity of purpose in life is the most beautiful thing that can happen besides falling in love. It's kind of the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to embarrass Jane further, when I was writing my profile of her, I spoke to several people who were in your class at Strasberg.
Oh my God, really?
And one person who remembered distinctly your first scene and said, I had never seen raw talent like that in my entire life. Nothing was perfect, and it was all perfect.
Wow.
And so what you were discovering was a kind of freedom. That's the word that we keep coming back
Right,
to
and then the big
tonight,
problem was then I went to Hollywood.
which means
It was just so hard with all the emphasis on how you look. It was hard to get back to what I felt when I was in class. And I don't know, it was just, I really didn't, besides, you know, it was Tall Story and it was the cheerleader and, you know, so I vowed I'd never do it again. And I didn't for a while until I got offered the part of Kitty Twist in Walk on the Wild Side, where I could be a hooker and a runaway and a bad girl, and so I came back to it. But it was, you know, learning how to take what you learn in class to the commercial part of the profession is hard. I found it hard.
you told me that when you made Walk on the Wild Side, that it was the first time that you realized that filmmaking was actually an art and a skill, and it was because of the way that the camera was positioned.
This is a little story. You know, for Tall Story, I mean, Josh Logan was a brilliant director, and he directed my first movie, Tall Story. Josh Logan, you know, he did Mr. Roberts and South Pacific. He was a very famous director, and Picnic. And, but it was all very conventional, you know, long shot, two shot, medium shot, close up over the shoulder, and that's all it was. Okay, my second movie several years later, Walk on the Wild Side, I shouldn't probably say this, but Edward Dmytryk started directing it. But he spent his whole time outside practicing his golf swing, and I guess Charlie Feldman, who was the producer, fired him and brought in a new young director. And I was in the first scene that he was shot. It happened to be with Barbara Stanwyck, and I played a hooker, and she was the madam, and I had a really, really, really tight dress on, and I had to get up from the bed and walk to the door, and the camera was on the floor, shooting my ass. And it was like, oh, it's all about where the camera is. You know, the angle, that's, you tell the story by where you put the camera. And you know who the director was? Blake Edwards.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the person who raised that, where the camera is, to an art form, of course, was Fred Zinnemann.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's something that occurred to me, Jane, while you were talking about your dad for a minute. Do you think that admitting or not knowing that you were a performer was a way of having some safe distance from him and an enormously complicated relationship because he was a complicated guy? Was it a way of not joining that?
I don't know.
Okay.
He didn't want either me or my brother to become actors because he knew too many actors who didn't make it and kind of worked automobile shows, and he didn't think we were probably talented, and he was trying to protect us. And, you know, you remember on Golden Pond, you remember how Mike Chelsea always thought she was a little fat girl? Well, I always thought I was a little fat girl, and then, you know, I couldn't see myself being an actress on the screen, so it just seemed totally foreign to me.
Well, people like Pauline Kael tended to disagree with you. She called you the premier American film actress for a very long time.
Wow.
And in reading that, I wanted to ask you this question. When I go back through your work and look at incredible performances you gave in pieces like 1984's The Doll Maker and 1986's The Morning After, I wonder what you make of the material that's being written for women today. Do you think that if an actress has any clout, that she has to develop her own projects in order to get that kind of material because you were the producer?
Well, at that time, I felt like I had to do my own. I produced those because
Yes.
I couldn't find anything, and I was a whole lot younger then. But you could say what you want. Meryl Streep has sort of redefined it. Somebody said to me the other day, Meryl Streep is the new Harrison Ford. You can
What does that
open a
mean?
Meryl Streep film in August and know it's going to make money. And she's over 60. I mean, God bless her. Let's hear it for Meryl Streep. So, it's the fact is that older women are the fastest growing demographic in the world, and it's a market-based, it's a business, Hollywood, and pretty soon they're going to realize that they have to make movies that older women want to see, and older men. But, and they will. But it's hard to find movies that are multidimensional. You make a movie like Monster-in-Law, and then the only scripts I get are movies that are like a poor version of Monster-in-Law, which a lot of critics thought was poor anyway. But why is Fonda making a comeback in a popcorn movie?
Well,
Duh, because I knew a lot of young people were going to come to get to see Jennifer Lopez, and they would discover me because my part was better.
right.
And I was right. I walk down the street now, and if I see young girls recognize me and start to get excited, and they come up and they start talking, and I know exactly what they're talking about. Forget Julia or Clued or Coming Home or On Golden Pot. It's Monster-in-Law. It was fun.
back to that
Yes.
wonderful thing that you shared about going back to school to work on your instrument.
Uh-huh.
You're one of the most brilliant people I know about other performers.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about those people you learned a lot from working with? I know Vanessa Redgrave is a huge person in your life.
Vanessa is transcendent. I mean, she's. I had the same feeling working with her that I did working with Brando, which I was in a movie called The Chase with him, and it's like, however you thought the scene was supposed to go and the particular rhythm that the scene was supposed to have, it never worked out that way with either Vanessa or Marlon Brando, and I never quite understood what they were doing, so I was always off kilter. And I don't know what that means, except that they had this in common, and I think they are both brilliant performers. And Katharine Hepburn was another one, but she taught me more about life than she did about acting.
Meaning?
Well, one of the things that I haven't written about or talked about a whole lot, because I've talked about, when she watched me. She hid in the bushes watching me learn how to do the backflip. And when I finally managed to do it, before we actually were shooting the scene, she came up to me and she said, "You've taught me to respect you, Jane. You have to confront your fears, otherwise you'll get soggy." But one day, it was early on in the filming, and I had in the scene where I had kind of just arrived home, and we were getting ready to shoot, and I looked in the mirror, there was a mirror, and I was fixing my hair to get ready, and she came up from behind me, and she took her fingers like this, and she said, "This is your box. This is what you present to the world. What do you want this to say about you?" And I didn't even know what she was talking about. And I had no idea how to answer her, but of course it stuck in my craw. I thought about it for months and years, and now I realize what an important lesson that there was there. I used to think that that being self-conscious was bad, but she taught me, and it's what she was talking about then, was especially if you're a performer, it's very important to be conscious of yourself, of how you present yourself to the world, of what the ether is like around you. That you can't just kind of like not pay attention and let it go, which frankly I did, partly because I was married to a man who said it was bourgeois if you paid attention to how you looked. So I had no style, I didn't look particularly good ever, and it bothered her, it made her angry. She wanted me, so now in my dotage, I have finally become more self-conscious, and it's a good thing to be. For anyone, and especially if if you are about presenting yourself to the public. So that's one example. She loved teaching. She loved passing on wisdom, which is an important part of getting older, is taking that responsibility on your shoulders.
I see you do it all the time.
I do it, yeah. She taught me how important it is.
And
Michael Jackson was my friend, and he came and visited us on the set of On Golden Pond. And at first she didn't know. There's this young black boy who's going to be coming to visit the. She didn't like it. And then she found out who he was. She was also a snob. So then she was very happy that he was coming. He had just finished doing The Whiz. And every day I would drive him to the set, and when I wasn't in the scene, and in between scenes, she'd say, "Come on," and he'd pull up a chair next to her, had a tape recorder, and he'd tape her, and she would tell stories, and embedded in every story would be a lesson. You know, one of the lessons was Lorette Taylor. She saw Lorette Taylor play Glass Menagerie when Taylor was very, very young, and she talked about the magic of that performance. And then she saw her many decades, maybe even later, play, and she said, and the magic was gone, and she said she wasn't hungry anymore. You have to stay hungry. And I thought, what a great thing to say to a young performer, especially Michael at that time in his career. I wonder where those tapes are, because it was days of tapes that he made.
Wow.
I should try to find out.
When you, because at that time, a little known fact about your work as a performer is how great you are and were on the stage. We first met when you were in Moises Kaufman's play, but in my research, you had done Strange Interlude
With Jerry Page.
with Geraldine
Yeah.
Page, and your reviews were fantastic, equal to hers. Yes, they were.
It's not possible.
It is true. It is true.
Well, I wish that reviewer was still alive.
What was it? What about the stage was a deterrent for you from working on it continually?
Oh, well, part of it had to do with, I mean, you know, the Strange Interlude is a 6-hour play. You know, you do 3 hours, and then people go to dinner, and then you come back and see the other 3 hours, and Geraldine Page is on the stage the whole time. And it was an actor studio production, I think the only one they ever did. Jose Quintero directed it. And from the time of the first rehearsal, she knew the whole part. It's not that she knew the words. That wasn't what was important. She embodied the character already. And she was so brilliant, and I realized I can never, ever do that. And it scared me away from, you know, and I had done 4 plays, and none of them were successful, and I didn't enjoy it. But part of my bucket list was wanting to, before I died, to come back and do the theater again, because my father always loved the theater more than anything, and I wanted to know why. I wanted to experience that, and I did with Moises's play. I found the joy that he did in it.
What
And
was
I'm
the
very
joy?
grateful.
What was the joy that you found on stage then?
Well, first of all, that you have the time to drill down into a character. I mean, we did it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and at the
Yes.
last performance, I said to Samantha Mathis, who played my daughter, I finally got that moment. You know, we don't get that kind of time in movies. And you're not like, you know, that you could make a movie and never even meet somebody that's in the movie with you. You don't get a chance to really to kind of work it and discover things. And so it was the discovery. I mean, the words were also beautiful, and the theme moved me so much. But it was the chance to, you know, I used to think that I peaked in tryouts. No, I
At your
would. I
audition,
was
at your
always
audition.
great at auditions, and it never got that good again. And yet, in this experience, I discovered that I did. I was like polishing a stone. And then we took it to the Amundsen in Los Angeles, and it was much better.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great learning experience for me.
You haven't stopped, because not only the movie tonight, by the way, her performance, she was very, my mother would say, who's she? Jane was very kind and arranged a screening for me in New York when I was writing about her, and I'm sorry, you eat them all up, basically. It's a great performance because you're so free in it, and you can feel your
You can feel that I'm. I know.
and you
I
can feel
that
your
I
energy
agree
to,
with. Yeah, I
to
don't
show.
know about great,
you
but
can
feel
be,
it.
you can feel your energy to show up, and it's just chemical. Basically, the film reacts to your showing up in a big way. So there's that, and now you're part of Aaron Sorkin's universe. And
It's an honor. It's a thrill, I'm telling you.
you're a great improviser, and he doesn't really have a lot of improvising.
Well, Jeff Daniels is a friend of mine, and as I know you'll all agree with me, an unbelievably brilliant actor, sometimes underrated, has tremendous range, and he's really the star of the show. He's the person who's on the news, in the newsroom. And he took me aside at the first table read. I'd never done a table read. I'd never been on a TV series before. I didn't even know what they call someone like me. It's called a recurring guest star. I'm only in 3 episodes out of 10.
Yeah.
But he said, you got to know every word, every comma, every period, backwards and forwards in your sleep. And he was right. And I did.
Wow.
And my first speech was 4 pages long. And I didn't have to bring sides to the. Aaron only comes in at the first read, the day of the shooting, and he said, "Where are your sides?" And I said, "I don't need sides."
That's right.
And then I did it flawlessly. But I wanted to add the word "no." I had to call and ask permission.
Well,
And if you don't do it right, if the script continuity person says you said this word wrong and then you do it right, you think, of course, there's a reason that it was written that way. The rhythm is just not right if you don't do it that way. But it's brave and it's brilliant, and I'm just so excited.
well, if I had been by your side when Aaron Sorkin asked you that question, I would have said, she's Jane Fonda, damn it. So, there's another project that I wanted to ask you about that's getting a lot of sort of attention now, and that's Lee Daniels' new film called The Butler.
Yes, it's a
And
beautiful script.
Tell us who you play.
I play Nancy Reagan. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm told that she's quite happy with the fact that I'm playing her, which makes me happy. And again, it's a cameo. It's mostly about the butler, who's going to be played by Forrest Whitaker, who's also brilliant, and Oprah's playing his wife. And it's a true story about a black butler from the Jim Crow South who is the butler in the White House through 5 administrations. And through the Reagan administration causes him to quit, and you'll see why. And many stars play cameos as presidents and first ladies, and it's good. We're going to shoot it in August.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun.
Jane, since I saw you maybe 8 months ago, I cannot tell you what your energy level is like. Your focus, commitment is extraordinary. It is so beautiful to see.
Oh, thanks.
I have no more damn questions for
Well,
you, except I just want to watch
last time you
you.
saw me, I was getting my knee replaced.
Right.
So of course I didn't.
But it means the world to us that you're working
Thank you.
in this way. So come back soon. She has something else in mind. Come back soon.
Okay,
And we
thank
love you very much.
Thank you. I